got it going. Great. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us to chat with Dr. Trujillo. Just so you know that how the night's going to go, we do have about 45 minutes. Dr. Trujillo has a couple of things he just wants to share with you all. And then if you would like to make a comment or ask any questions, if you wouldn't mind putting your name in the chat along with your topic, then we will call you in order, and that way then you can ask your question or make your comment. So remember, this is being recorded. And so Dr. Trujillo, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, no, good afternoon. And I just want to welcome everybody here. And this is literally one of my favorite things to do is really just meet our employees and hear what's on our employees' minds and see how we can better serve you here in the district. And, you know, before we get going, I just want to cover a few key items here logistically. First, the idea here is for me not to do all the talking. I literally have maybe, you know, 5 or 7 minutes of just an update on what we're trying to do for our employees with regard to compensation. And then we're going to throw it open to you. There's no right or wrong answers here. Like everybody's opinion, everybody's concerns, everybody's passion points, everybody's issues that they have, they're all valid. You know, my job here is to kind of listen to everybody and see, you know, get a feel for where our employees at. There's going to be a lot of issues on the table, from student discipline to COVID mitigation to masks to the standardized assessments that are coming at us, to compensation. So we want to be certainly sensitive to everybody's concerns here. And then the other thing that I'm going to ask is, let's just make sure that we're being just in the spirit of letting as many people speak as possible. My job here, I'm just hoping that all 48 people on this call get an opportunity to say something. So if we can be as brief as possible, I think that would be awesome. That way we're giving everybody an opportunity to speak. I've got our director for employee relations here. So if there's any, you know, we run into any employee specific concerns about working conditions or compensation, it's not that I don't want to take those on. It's just that we have limited time here. And I want to kind of make sure that we're allotting this time to the collective group. But because those issues matter, we've got Maricela Messick here to interact with you personally, to get you a personal appointment, to resolve any concerns that you may be bringing forward that might be employee specific or, you know, compensation related. With that, I'll go ahead and begin, and then we're going to turn it over to your questions. If there is any priority more important than making sure that our employees are taken care of, I'm not aware of it. It's literally what I've heard from every school visit that I've had. Every interaction with our employees has been around how difficult this economy is, how tough inflation has been, the rising costs of gas and groceries and bills and rent and mortgages, the compensation issue around daily rates of pay, salaries for our teachers, hourly rates of pay for classified. They have literally been on our mind the last 12 to 18 months, which is why you've seen our district administration and our governing board take 3 really aggressive steps. First and most obvious, up to $7,500 in stipends with our ESSER money for every single employee in the district. Maricela is going to, in a moment, talk to you about the eligibility criterion that everybody is eligible for, whether you're full-time, you're part-time, or even some of our variable hour employees like our subs. All will have an opportunity to either A, get the $7,500 payable through up to $2,500 each semester for the next 3 semesters, or $1,250 based off of the amount of days or hours or the position that you have. So we're going to talk about that. Then the district's aggressive move towards $15 an hour. So our district has established, our governing board has been very public about its vision to make sure that the minimum hourly wage in this district is $15 an hour as soon as possible. And it took a step. at 2 governing board meetings ago to move it again for the second time in a year from $13 to $13.50 to make sure that there is no job in the Tucson Unified School District that pays less than $13.50 an hour. The march towards $15 continues. Our board has been very, very clear that it intends to continue each fiscal year on its march to establish $15 an hour as the minimum hourly rate in this district. And lastly, we're proud that our governing board passed a around $5 million package to address an issue that we have in the Tucson Unified School District called compression. And compression, what compression is, it's the concept of wages that have been adjusted either because of new minimum wage requirements, like when we moved it from $12.50 to $13 an hour, or from $13 to $13.50 an hour, or wage adjustments that we make to positions because we're trying to be competitive with what the position pays in the private sector. Like what we did with bus drivers, when we moved the bus drivers to $15 an hour. The problem when we do that is veteran employees that have been with us for years and years and years, their wages didn't move. So when we moved the bus drivers, guess what happened? There was a lot of employees with 10, 15 years of service that were making $15 an hour, yet the new bus drivers came in first year making $15 an hour. We have seen that in a number of positions. So we are working to implement the governing board's $5 million package that we're going to be executing next school year, effective July 1, where we're going to move in and we're going to be adjusting wages according to a formula that will apply 1% of an employee's hourly rate of pay for every year of service in those positions that have been affected by these wage adjustments. So if I could, first of all, ask Maricela, if you would, as I want to return real briefly to stipends. And yes, $7,500 over 3 semesters over the next 2 school years. Yes, we have different eligibility criteria. If you can go through that with our group, Maricela, on the screen share, that may lessen some of the questions we may see around stipends. And then we'll go into just a little bit of a brief demonstration of the compression issue. Ms. Mesa.
Is everyone able to see my screen? Okay, see nodding. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so we're really excited about this because it gives us something to look forward to coming next year. I know I'm looking forward to it, but basically you come to work in next fall, $2,500 in December. You're working in the spring, $2,500 in June. Same thing for December 2023. It's you're there for that semester, you get this money. And everyone who's 0.5 and above, eligible for the 2,500, less than that, up to 1,250. We're looking at the days worked for subs and supplementals. What we want to do is encourage our employees to come to work and to maybe pick up extra days if possible to reach the 45 and above. So we want to make this a really enticing retention stipend for everyone that contributes to the district in different ways. This is just going over the criteria very quickly so you can see the dates. Why this is important is say you're recruiting someone. Well, let me backtrack. This year's retention stipends, the ones that we received in October, you had to have worked with the district the year prior. That's not the case here. You can be a new employee next year and be eligible for the stipend. You simply just have to be working with the district as of November 1 to receive the payment December 2nd. So this should be good recruiting for your friends like, hey, come work for TUSD. You're going to get this payment in December as long as you're here November 1st. You don't have the caveat of having had to work for TUSD this year. And this is because we want to retain all the employees. The employees that have been with us a long time, and the newer employees. There's a little bit of a caveat here. I see some subs on the boxes here. Not everyone might have the 45 days by November 1st. Okay, we also don't want everyone to try to get their work days at the beginning and not have subs available later on in November, December. So what will happen for these individuals, the supplementals, the subs who don't have the 45 days by November 1st, they can still complete the 45 days within the semester. They'll just get paid at a later time. So that's the gist of it. I don't know if there are any questions that you can put in the chat, but that is what I have.
Marisela, there is one question in the chat that's specific to stipends.
Yeah, Leslie, if we could, what we'll
wait?
do is real quick, I'm going to ask you to open the compression slide. I will just do a very quick compression, and then we're going to get right to the questions, okay? And then we'll get those questions that are in the chat already about the stipend. So if you could open the compression slide. So when I talked about compressed wages, I wanted to give you an example of what compression looks like, okay? So about a year ago, when the governing board moved the minimum wage from $12.50 to $13 an hour, it's since moved it to $13.50. But for the example's sake, we're using the current $13. So you can see what happened. We took a variety of cafeteria workers from 7 years of experience to 10 years to 21 to 29. You could see what happened when we moved to $13 an hour. With the 4 employees involved here, we created basically a situation where cafeteria employees with up to 10 years of dedicated service to the district were making the same as a first year cafeteria worker coming in fresh at $13 an hour. We can even see that somebody with 21 years of service is only making 39 cents more than somebody new coming in. You see with somebody with almost 30 years of service only making 77 cents more than a first year employee coming in. So with the governing board's $5 million package, it's designed to move in and award 1% hourly wage increase for every year of service so that we can create more distance and pay our veteran employees more hourly to reward their seniority and their longer service to the district. So you can see with the governing board's approved compression package and our formula, this 21-year veteran is going to get a 21-year increase, a 21% increase to their hourly rate of pay. So they're going to see a new rate of $16.12, which is more appropriate for an employee with more than 2 decades of service, as opposed to $13 an hour. These types of adjustments, they're going to be made throughout the district in every single instance where we see this phenomenon. And I wanted to make sure that we showed all of our employees on this call what it physically looks like. Because in a governing board meeting, we're talking very quickly, we're throwing around vocabulary, technical vocabulary words like compression and percent market. I wanted to take a real example of a real employee. In fact, one of our frontline employees feeding our kids, cafeteria worker, to show exactly what it looks like and to show what happens when we are able to apply our formula that will take effect July 1st, 2022. July 1st, 2022, these employees will have these new rates, and we will be better, in a better position to honor our veterans and to honor our employees with multiple years of service. That way there's a lot more distance wage-wise between our most senior employees and our newest. So thank you, Leslie. With that, I want to get right to the questions. Let's get as many in as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you. The first question, and sorry if I don't pronounce her name correctly, Mary Saraceni. She wanted to talk about coal. So Mary, if you'll unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted and I should, there we go. Hi, I am a 32-year veteran in the district and I currently teach exceptional ed at Cole, Catalina Online Learning Experience. And my concern is that Cole doesn't have any system to match the amount of employees to the amount of enrollments. Tuva is able to shut down their enrollment and say, we're capped, you have to come back next quarter, next semester, whatever. And we don't have that ability. We have, as of 3 o'clock today, 1,098 students enrolled at Cole. We have 4 gen ed teachers and myself. We have no dedicated assistant principal, dean, any of those sorts of commodities. We have 3 hourly employees, a counselor, the 5 of us, and we share the assistant principal. Well, we borrow the assistant principal from Catalina High School and Mr. Butler from technology as our co-coordinators, one of which is on campus 2 days a week. We are just absolutely drowning. And I don't care how much stipend you offer, I'm not coming back. It's nuts to have 70 students that I'm responsible for. And it's been like this all year. We've never once had a visit from the director of alternative programs. We don't have any administrators come to visit. We're just drowning. And I want to know what can be done so that we can retain the very experienced teachers that we have. One's been there 20 plus years, one's been there 12 plus years, 6 years. They know what they're doing. They're working as fast as they can. One gentleman has 800 students that he's responsible for. He can't even answer the emails in a timely manner, much less grade their coursework, open their tests in Apex, and do all the behind the scenes. And when we say something, we're told, but you're not really teaching.
Well,
So
no,
that's my concern.
So, yeah, thank you very, very much. So first of all, thank you for your years of service. We certainly do hope that you come back, but certainly respect any decision that you have to separate. It's been a tremendously difficult year, not just for Cole, but across the district, as the district has been absolutely rocked by labor shortages in every possible area. However, you do bring a very, very serious issue to light. I'm glad that we have Maricela here. I believe that this is an immediate need for our negotiations with TEA. We do not have an established ratio, to my knowledge, of class sizes for Cole. We do not have established ratios for staffing at Cole in terms of administrative. At what point does it get an assistant principal? At what point do Cole teachers get overcap payments? You're absolutely right. We do have no language in the consensus agreement that details that out. We have very general language. And I would like to invite Maricela to officially put that on the list for our partners with the Tucson Education Association, so we can start hammering out a clear staffing ratio so we can bring some relief. I think it's a bittersweet message, and because of the educational opportunity that Cole brings to so many kids. It's great that it's so popular and that we have a lot of kids enrolled, but it's also very, very difficult to hear that we have not done our job in adequately resourcing the staff that is there currently in terms of making sure that class sizes are manageable. We have the administrative help needed there to make that happen. So I'm going to ask Maricela, let us fast track this in negotiation so that we could have some clearer ratios and bring them forward in the consensus agreement before we bring it forward for governing board approval. Thank you, Mary, for bringing this to our attention. With this, I'm going to turn it back to Leslie for our next speaker.
Yes, the next speaker is Darlene Carrera and want to talk about class closure.
Hello, Darlene.
Hi, Dr. Trujillo. I'm a special education teacher at Sewell Elementary. I teach in the self-contained autism classroom, K-2. I just have a few points that I would like to bring to your attention.
Absolutely.
In mid-January, we were told that our self-contained classrooms here were being shut down. The reason they were being shut down was due to transportation issues. I also understand that other schools were given the choice or opportunity to transition their classrooms into a cross-categorical classroom instead of being shut down. We were not given that option. The district has a huge shortage of teachers, paraprofessionals, has had that in other positions as well. The parents at our school are extremely disappointed in the shutdown of our classrooms. My co-teacher and myself both feel that we have worked for years without any support from the ex-ed department for years. Basically doing this all on our own. Also, just recently found out that the parents were told their kids were going to one school, and we as the teachers were told they were going to a different school. So in order for us to do their IEPs correctly, we weren't given the same information. And I appreciate your time and that you've taken to listen to our concerns.
Well, thank you, Darlene, and I thank you for all of your support out there at the Sewell community. I just visited Sewell, I think right around shortly after the, I think it was before the Christmas break, during the wonderful time for that campus. So I can't speak too much because I don't know. We can follow up in terms of what specific locations the students were going, but I definitely will own the transportation issue. That was my decision. It was a very difficult decision. That one, the buck stops with me, and I was the one that made that final decision. It was a very tough one. Our team deliberated on that one very, very long and hard. And I'll tell you, I can only give you the rationale. I can't ask anybody here to agree with it, but only to understand the factors that led to that decision. First of all, on a macro level, we have a huge driver shortage set against an increasing demand for transportation. So every year, the demand for transportation services grows. The amount of students that are eligible for transportation grows larger and larger and larger and larger, while our driver workforce continually grows smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And we were and are forced into a position of trying to create as many routes as we possibly can to serve the needs of the ridership, of the larger ridership, the increasing demand for ridership that we have in the district. And part of that was taking a look at where we have our ex-ed programs. And when the district operates something like 50 to 60 self-contained programs at 50 to 60 schools around the district, we are taking 50 to 60 buses off out of regular routes, and we are providing specialized routes, a lot of times for buses that only have 5 or 10 students. And those are buses that could be out servicing full loads, full routes of 60 or 70 students at a time. So we were faced with a very painful decision of trying to reduce the amount of physical locations where we were housing self-contained programs, and try where we could, while still maintaining the integrity of what we could offer our self-contained programs, to put them at other schools. And this has not been received well. Absolutely, I'm acknowledging that right now. It has not been received well. This is not something that there would be no winnable solution at all. It's either take the heat, face the heat as we are now from the ex-ed community, and we're facing it with our teachers, with our parapros, and with our parents, or not make the changes, continue to force 50 or 60 individualized routes to 50 or 60 different schools, face the same kind of fire from the general ridership about late arrivals, late departures, lost kids, overstacked routes with 60, 70 students on them. There would have been no way out. This is definitely not something we hope is permanent. We certainly are doing everything we can to hire as many drivers as we can, and hiring more drivers is the answer. So we're going to continue in those efforts. Darlene, thank you for very honestly bringing this issue to our attention. With that, I'll turn it back to Leslie.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Dylan Barton, who wanted to talk about ex-ed staffing. Dr. Barton?
Dr. Barton, hello.
Hello, yes, I want to echo Darlene's point and the earlier speaker. I'm very grateful that we have this forum. My perspective is a little bit unique. I'm a first year psych to the school psychologist of the district. One thing that has been concerning for me is that just like all our other sectors with our bus drivers and our teachers and our special ed ex-ed teachers, we've been short-staffed. Psychs have been short-staffed all year. But what I'm concerned about is, from what I understand, the psychologist pool for hiring is very dependent on the interns that we get from the U of A or this new doctoral internship program that was recently started in the district. For what I understand, the pool of individuals who had come on this year, including our interns and including myself, none of those individuals are coming back next year. So understanding that the psychologists have had, shortages just like everyone else, what I'm worried about is I think it's going to get much worse next year. And I would anticipate that's not going to be unique to the psychologists in the district. So part of my question is I'm wondering if there are any plans to work with the psychologist department or the lead psychologist or Dr. Salmon to talk about what might be going on, because I do think that stipends and pay increase, that's not going to hurt, right? But if I had to guess, especially with my own experience and with the experience of one of those newly onboarded psychs who left actually within the first week of the school year, I don't think it's the full story. So I'm just wondering if there are any plans to kind of work in-house to address those staffing concerns.
Dr. Barton, thank you very, very much. And I will say that sort of the unsung heroes, if you will, of the ex-ed determination of services / IEP process is a psychologist. Psychologist takes a lot of fire. Psychologists face a lot of heat from parents. Parents demand certain services and they threaten and they bring activists. Principals want certain services and they lobby the psychologist. Teachers want certain services and they lobby the psychologist. And it's the psychologist in the middle of all that, having to make the best possible decision based off of the data they're presented with. So thank you very much for your service. It's a very difficult position to be in. And here is where we're at, Dr. Barton. You're absolutely correct. Money, though it helps, it does not solve the issue of workload and burnout. Even though you're making more money, you're still spending the same amount of crazy energy. You're still eating into your weekends. You're still eating into your personal time, and it's still having the same effect in terms of burnout. So we're looking at two things right now. Obviously, yes, stipends, overcap payments, those types of things are always going to be in play. But we find ourselves in a very difficult situation with the psychologists, the same situation that we've found ourselves in with grounds and with our HVACs, okay? When you look at what's happening with grounds and HVAC meaning our heating, our ventilation, and our air conditioning, cooling specialists. These are the ones that go in and fix all of our cooling issues and our heating issues, our electricians, and then of course our grounds. They're making a lot more money in the private sector than they are not just for TUSD, but for any school district. So when you look at, for example, HVAC, we're staffed with just about 20 HVAC specialists. Okay, that's what our budget can accommodate. Right now, we've got 6. We can't keep them. When you look at grounds, there's a reason why a lot of our schools have overgrown weeds and have not been tended to, it's because grounds, that's a department that has budget allocations for 19 positions. We've got 5. And we're in that same situation now with psychologists. Psychologists serve an ex-ed population of just shy of 7,000. We're one of the state's largest. And as we've done with grounds and as we've done with HVAC, and as we're probably going to have to do with psychologists, we're probably going to have to partner with the private sector and start looking at a vendor to pick up some of the work until we can fill positions. This is not outsourcing because the jobs remain. This is vendor assistance until we can get the positions filled. And I know there's a lot of people that like to throw rocks at the district and accuse us of union busting and outsourcing. Those are the same individuals that, if schools continue to grow like forests and jungles and have uncut weeds and shrubs, because we're not partnering with any kind of vendor and we're not filling positions, another rock will be thrown at us for being negligent and in allowing our schools to, basically go to pieces with facilities. Same thing. No teacher, no employee on this call wants to put up with a hot office, okay? Or wants to put up with an air condition that's failing in their individual classroom or office. They're expecting somebody to get out there same day or 48 hours, okay? So that same person that might say, oh, you're outsourcing all the HVAC jobs, that's the same person that is not going to complain if a vendor walks into their classroom and says, how can we help? We believe in local jobs. We believe in local jobs for the local school district. However, if we don't have the applicants, we have a responsibility to meet the need of the district, and we're going to do that. And so we're going to be working with Dr. Salmon to take a look at what consultant could come in temporarily and start relieving some of the burdens, some of the excessive workload that we're seeing with our psychologists until we can get those positions filled. And that's a conversation that's definitely in the work, Dr. Barton. And it's probably going to take some time because we have to go through that procurement process. We have to identify a vendor. Vendors have to make bids, just like we've done with landscaping services and just like we've done with HVAC. I see us going the same route with psychologist services, specifically with services to ex-ed students. Appreciate the question. Thank you again. I'll turn it back over to Leslie.
Thank you. Our next 2 questions are about stipends. The first is from Diana West. Diana?
Hello, Diana.
Hi, how are you?
Doing very well.
Give me just a second. Let me find my questions. I put them in the chat. I had 2 questions. The first one is, and I think it's already been answered, the stipends include rehired retirees, correct? Least like ESI, ESS folks?
It includes ESI and return to work, yes.
Okay. And then you guys were talking about compression relief. Will that be extended to certified staff? Like back when we had the 20 by 2020, there was a raise, 3,000, 5,000, whatever. There was a raise that was given to everyone across the board. And so some folks got X% raise, but because I've been teaching for 29 years, it wasn't the same percent, if that makes sense.
Diana, you're absolutely right. At this moment in time, the administration and the board has not yet taken the step to deal with certified teacher compression. It's a whole new initiative. And you're right. When the governing board gave flat dollar raises to every single teacher, those percentages didn't mean the same. If a teacher with 29 years of service, like yourself, got $3,000, that's not the same as the first year teacher getting $3,000. A first year teacher who makes $40,000 getting $3,000 is almost a 10% raise. But if you're somebody with 3 or 4 decades of service and you're already making 55 or 60,000, we can't say that we gave you anywhere near 20% or 10%. And there have been other wage adjustments that we've made. We've adjusted the first year teacher salary quite a few times in the last several years. So we know that certified compression, I will tell you that your association fights for it. And Maricela will tell you, every year, TEA and their executive leadership, they put that item front and center. They want to see the district administration and the governing board start to commit some dollars to deal with compression for veteran teachers like yourself, that deal with the same concept that the classified folks. So right now it's classified, but we certainly have that goal of once we get a sustainable funding source, taking the step to deal with the teacher compression issue. So thank you, Diana, for bringing that issue forward. Leslie, we'll turn it back to you.
Great. The next question is from, and I'm sorry, I don't know your first name, M. Kazeda. You had a question about the stipend as well? Can you unmute yourself if you're here? All right. So we'll move on to the next person. Valerie Jackson had a question on compensation.
Yes, I just had a quick question. For those who are veterans or have been here for multiple years prior, if we are going through the process that is still pending for reclassification compensation, how would that be in play with the increase by 1% as well? Is that going to be something that's going to be implemented on top of the reclassification compensation, or is it one or the other?
So that's definitely something that I'm going to ask Maricela to follow up with. You know, I want to, sometimes I don't have all the answers, and, you know, I can speak to compression, but if you're also going through a reclassification, that's going to require a little bit of research on our end. So Ms. Mesa, I would definitely ask you to follow up with Ms. Jackson, touch base with HR to see if it's an either or if it's an addition to, because I do think it's a valid concern.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is from Rika Richardson, had a question on compression. Rika, are you still here? Looks like she may have left. The next question is from Dolores De Vera. She had a question on substitute pay rates.
Hello, doctor. Last year or earlier in the, I think in May, Ms. Huizer said that there was this great new concept that if the fill rates went above 75% at any school, you didn't have to pay the hard to fill rate. And she says right now, all the schools are hard to fill. So, you know, the history of the district is we get pay cuts. And so we're all worried about that. You know, do you still think that's a good idea, that if the fill rates go above 75%, it's okay to cut our pay? Because I mean, I'm excited about these stipends, but I just can't help but think that there's some catch.
I'll make this very easy for you, Dolores, and I've known you for quite some time. I appreciate all your advocacy for the subs. I really do. And you know, you step in and you fill a crucial role, all of you. But I don't have any imminent, any at all, actually, plans to cut daily or long-term rates for subs. We've never operated that way with any of our positions. I can't remember an instance where we have recommended any position in the Tucson Unified School District, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a counselor, social worker, crosswalk guard, food service, or a sub, to take them backwards on an hourly or daily rate or yearly salary. I believe that the demand for subs is here to stay. I believe that the rates that our governing board adopted, the increased rates that it adopted a few months ago, make us a lot more competitive with a lot of our other sister districts. We don't have any plans to take those backwards. Okay, so I don't know if that answers your questions, but if you're worried about a scenario where you're going to wake up tomorrow and there's this potential for the district, either the board or the district, to say, oh, the county is now in a low state of COVID transmission at the green level, so we no longer need these rates. So everybody now we're going to go back to 95 bucks a day or $105 a day. That's not happening. So I want to reassure all of our subs here that I believe these rates are here to stay. In terms of hard to fill, I'm not sure I understand that part of the question in terms of, do we view a need of hard to fill anymore? If you can expand on that a little bit more, I would appreciate that.
Well, it's been said that because the rates are so low, the current rate that we have is a hard to fill rate. So what was presented to the board, I believe it was back in May of last year, was that if the hard to fill rate is when the rates are below 75%. If a school has a fill rate that is above 75%, you can give that a not hard to fill rate. But because the rates were so low at the beginning of the year, what we have is all hard to fill. So I am afraid, because of what was said back then, that there might be some plans to cut the rates. I'm really glad to see that, you know, when the board pack comes out, looks like you're hiring about 30 subs a month. You know, I believe your fill rate should go up. I believe there's going to be a lot of competition to get those stipends. You know, people are going to be, that will get people to want jobs. But, you know, yeah, I'm afraid you're going to cut the rates. Under your administration, when we first got that raised to 135, when we came back in 2019, we had to fight to keep that. Because Miss Rico and Miss Heuser turned around and said, no, we never gave you that raise. You're not going to get that. And we had to go to the board twice to defend that. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, I'll repeat, you know, we don't have any imminent plans or plans to take any position backwards. That's just not, that is not anything that I would ever subscribe to. Rates are supposed to go up. They're not supposed to come down. You know, we're not supposed to move in and tell the bus drivers, oh, last year we gave you 16 bucks. Now we're going to give you 15 bucks. It doesn't work that way. We're not supposed to tell the teachers, you know, we gave you this 20%, Governor Doozy's 20 by 20, or we allocated X amount of dollars to a salary increase. We're going to take it away. Without looking at where we're at for fill rates, I couldn't even tell you what's hard to fill and what's not. I will tell you, you're exactly right. The month of January, the month of February, for most of 2021, which was still pretty much ravaged by this pandemic, more so in January and early February by Omicron, you're right. Everything was hard to fill. Everything was. I haven't looked at a fresh data set yet. I haven't looked at what campuses are above 75%, what are above low, but there's nothing on my radar screen right now that says, let's take away hard to fill rates and take daily rates backwards for some schools versus others. I think the new normal, as COVID has rewritten the rules with in a lot of different areas, I think the new normal that just getting a sub in a building at any of our schools is pretty much a hard to fill issue at this point, because the amount of competition with other districts for that same service, where we just need to stick with the rates that we have now that are highly competitive and just keep them. That's where we're coming from. So I know where you're coming from, so I do appreciate the comment there. With that, I'll turn it back to Leslie.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Ms. Richardson told me she doesn't have a mic, so I'll read her question. It says, does this mean that going forward, for every additional year of service that someone stays with the district, they will get an additional percentage increase? So I think she's talking about pay raises or steps.
So I'm going to let Maricela go ahead and chime in here, who is part of the compression design, if you will. Ms. Mesa?
Sure. As Dr. Trujillo said, I mean, it is if you were affected, and then the correction would happen at once. So it wouldn't be something that happens each and every year. So again, it's for people that were affected by compression before.
So yeah, so in the example that we showed with food service, right? So my 29-year employee is going to get the $2.30 increase immediately, or the $2.60 increase. They're going to get that immediately. And now they're set because we've created that distance. And then at that point, they're going to get whatever steps are negotiated by white collar food service. That's my understanding, right, Maricela, in subsequent years?
Correct.
Okay, okay. It's not going to be a fresh $2.60 per hour every single year going forward.
Correct.
It's a one-time adjustment to honor our veterans and make sure that they have the adequate distance. So thank you for that. All right, Leslie?
Great. Next person is Deborah Rivera. Had a question on classroom mitigation strategies. Deborah?
Hello, Deborah.
Hi, good afternoon. I would like to know since the mask mandate is gone and it's optional for students to wear masks. And I wanted to know the mitigation strategies because some teachers probably are like me, immune compromised. And I would like to be able to maintain the social distancing mitigation, you know, the 6 feet mitigation for people that's not having on a mask. Is there something that's saying you can't do that?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, Deborah. So first of all, Deborah, you have every right to continue to wear your mask. Okay, you have every right to participate in pool testing. You have every right to encourage your students to wear masks. Okay, you have every right to create that norm in your classroom. What we're not able to do now is force any student to wear a mask. We certainly encourage. We can certainly ask them. You also are in control, Deborah, of the configuration of your own classroom, okay? And if you feel comfortable as you are the teacher of record, you are the captain of the ship in there in that classroom, and you want to enforce distancing, and you want to make sure that your kids are adequately spaced apart, that's your area of control. You know, I can't say that you can mandate that students wear masks in your class, but you certainly control seating configurations. You certainly control the extent and frequency in which you're wiping things down or you're asking kids to wipe things down. The administration, your campus administration, is responsible for giving you the PPE that you feel most comfortable with. If that's a face shield, if that's an N95 mask, we're going to get that for you. If those are desk shields that you still prefer to use in your room, we're still going to get that for you. So our job is to meet your needs in terms of what your comfort level is, in terms of being able to feel comfortable in your classroom. So thank you for bringing that forward, and we're certainly going to do our best to make sure that your needs are being met.
And the reason why I asked, sir, is because I had informed my students that if they want to come in my space, you know, to my desk and talk with me at my desk, just for that time period to put on a mask. And evidently someone went to administration and they said that I couldn't do that. But
so I gotta give you a tough answer here, Deborah. Your administration is right. Okay, they can't force a kid to have a mask, and I wish I had a different answer for you.
but do I have to allow them to come to my desk?
If you have a kid that is not wearing a mask, you have every right to ask them to stay seated. You do have a right to say that you're not comfortable for them coming up to your desk. That you do have a right to do, but we don't have the authority, not I, not the principal, not any classroom teacher, to say you must wear a mask. So I just want to be very honest with you. We will give you that support. If you want to ask students to remain at their desk and you want to create a classroom level system,
Yes, sir.
they raise their hand and you can address them from a distance, absolutely. You're in control in that situation. It's just the mask is where the line is. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
that provided some greater clarification.
Yes, sir. Because I believe by the time this school year is over with, everything will have, you know, peaked out. But I'm still, because of my immune thing, I would rather, like I say, practice the social distancing.
Absolutely. You got to do what you can to keep yourself safe. And I know Leslie just sent me a message. We got a couple more questions. That's great. Looks like we're able to get through them all. So let's hammer them out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Melody Johnson, who had a question on substitute weekly testing. Melody?
Hello, Mel.
Yes. Hi, thank you, Dr. Trujillo. I have been, can you guys hear me clearly?
We can hear you. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you for taking the question. I've been substituting for your district since 2019. I was there during the height of the pandemic. Fast forward to now, I have not taken the COVID test. And now you're requiring us substitute teachers to come down to take the test on a weekly basis. Either we can come down to the district, which will take out of my, that will take a pay, which will be a payday that will take out of my day. Or of course, I have the option to go elsewhere, Walgreens. Quite frankly, I don't trust anyone else to do those COVID testing. My question is this, since it's weekly testing, can we, instead of doing the weekly testing, can you go, let me preface this by saying this. Since you guys have put this in place, I haven't worked for Tucson. Only when the teachers have to call me. The teachers have to text me, Melody, can you work? You know, and I say, no, I can't because I haven't gotten the COVID testing. I wanted to know, instead of monthly testing, us guest teachers.
So Melody, I've got some good news for you. The governing board took action to adopt a framework. And if we can have Leslie do a quick screen share, I believe I sent you, or you actually had it, Leslie, the graphic. When Pima County, Melody, is in a low state of COVID transmission, and right now it is, you look at the Pima County dashboard, our governing board adopted a framework that deems any kind of testing for any employee as optional. So you can see that right now, as of March 28th, we are in a state of low transmission for COVID-19 throughout Pima County. So you can see that the governing board action supports now not only that masks are optional for indoors and outdoors, but also that weekly testing for COVID is optional. So therefore, you don't really have to do COVID testing at all unless you wanted to. Now, with that being said, I will say that if there's another outbreak or there's another Omicron, the same framework that the governing board adopted allows the administration to pivot back to measures that may be necessary when when the county is experiencing high levels of COVID transmission, which then has us pivoting back to, we're going to require masks, we're going to require weekly testing for unvaccinated employees. So it just depends on where we're at. Thankfully, right now, we're in a place where you don't have to get those tests if you don't want to. Thank you, Leslie.
Okay, wait, Dr. Trio, thank you for answering that. Now, the issue is this, if that's really the case, then the substitute office should, because we have to pick our jobs.
Okay.
And so I cannot pick a job because they've taken me off of the ISOP where I can actually go in and pick my job. Because of course, as you know, Catalina, they don't require that from us. Flowing Wells, they don't require that from us. So how do I get them, now that I don't have to be tested, to get back on? How do they put me back onto ISOP, sir?
So what we just need to do is make sure that in the sub office that every single substitute is free and clear to sub and should not be put on a separate list.
Okay.
Because during the time of that policy, subs that were required to do the weekly testing had to be on a separate list until they showed proof of weekly testing, and then they would be activated to take jobs on frontline or ASOP. So we just very simply, we need to do our work and make sure and say, hey, listen, that policy is no longer requiring any subs to take any, or any employees for that matter, to take any of the weekly tests. So you need to be greenlit. So that's something we can do fairly easily. So you can start taking jobs again. And by the way, Melody, we want you taking those jobs. Okay. We don't win when subs don't take jobs, as Dolores pointed out. And the more jobs that subs take, the higher our fill rates are, and the more relief that our teachers feel in terms of not having to cover classes, especially in high schools where teachers have to surrender their prep periods to cover. So everybody wins when you take jobs. So we will definitely emphasize that fact with the sub office.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, Leslie.
Thank you. That was the last question. The other person declined. So Dr. Trujillo, do you have any final words? And then we'll wrap up for today.
I just want to thank everybody for being on the call. This is probably the most important part of the work that I do. I got to get out. Sometimes you get stuck in that ivory tower. You're sitting at the district, or you're in a governing board meeting. You need to get on the ground and hear what our employees are experiencing and feeling, and what they want to see from district leadership is extremely important. I do get out and visit a lot of schools, but when you're only at a school for an hour and you got to visit 20 classrooms and make sure that you're walking the grounds and meeting as many employees, you don't have time to really sit down and talk and hear what's on people's minds. So you're going to be seeing more of these forums. I'm going to challenge myself and my team to do at least a couple every 9 weeks, so that we're checking in with you, making sure we're giving folks an opportunity to talk about issues that are most pressing. So I'll be at it again later this week, as I'll be doing a forum for parents in both English and Spanish, so we can get a more well-rounded view of what's on the minds of our employees and our parents. So thank you again, everybody. It's the dinner hour. I want to make sure that all of you have time to get to that all-important dinner hour. We'll see you again soon. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Good night.